Hey, what is up, guys? It's Guiltspire here, and welcome back to Champions of the Fog. How y'all doing today on this marvelous Saturday? Yeah, today's Saturday. It feels like a Sunday for some reason, but marvelous Saturday afternoon. Hopefully, you all are doing well. And thank you, Shelby, for the tier 1 sub. I do appreciate it. And I do want to welcome today my co-host, Joker. How you doing today, Joker?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Going pretty good. How about yourself, man?
Pretty good, pretty good. Cannot complain. Very happy to be here as per usual, and very happy to have you on. You know, one thing I really do enjoy about COTF and kind of, making it my own thing, of course, is the ability to, bring on new people who haven't really gotten a chance to co-host with me before. So very happy to have you here. For those who don't know, Joker was actually one of my teammates on Fortnite's One Locker, given the logo over there on their profile pic. And so it's very exciting to be Chaff Joker again.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure to talk with you, game with you, whatever it is. Just happy I can help. I'm getting
Awesome,
excited
awesome.
for the games that we got for us.
Nah, I'm wicked excited as well. And I do believe right now we are waiting on Undying Alliance to join the match. I have sent out some invites. Giraffe, you could do me a quick favor and just give them a nice little tap on the shoulder. Let them know that we are ready to go on the killer side. That would be much appreciated. And as a quick... oh, what? Where's Sorry.
They said they would be a couple minutes.
Gotcha. No worries. Well, as a quick aside, something you might notice, there's no delay today. Well, technically there is a delay. There is a 1-minute delay. The community, reached out to me and pretty much said, hey, we want to see what it's like without a delay. Ran a poll, do you want a 10-minute delay? Do you want a 1-minute delay? Seemed like everyone wanted a 1-minute delay with a perk cover. So if you are, confused by that, that is why. It just means that, obviously, we will not be aware of what the killer is using right away at the very least. The good news is there's no real too much influence, as there's no no-eds, so no big surprises there. And Ruin Corrupt can kind of be found out pretty early. Most perks, if you're playing Survivor, you know what you're doing. You should know what the perks are from the first 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, agreed. I feel like most killers usually tend to run the same set perks. There's a few that vary on the last one, maybe, but yeah, no, it's I feel like the community, I will speak for the community a little bit here and agree that I definitely am happy for the not 15-minute delay.
10 minutes, but close enough. Yeah, it was one of those things where, on one hand, I got a lot of feedback before COTF that was letting me know, we didn't want perk covers. I'm like, okay, if no perk covers, what's the delay necessary to avoid potential, stream sniping? And so I was like, okay, what would that look like? And so I decided, oh, let's start the 10-minute, no perk cover. You guys can see what's going on from, minute 1, for lack of a better term. But, it seems like the community has kind of shifted again and wanting that short delay, a bit more interaction with the casters. So, I do have chat up here if you guys are looking. Sorry, Lockham and Zucken. I need you to not be here. That is one of the people on my friends list, one of my community members. But they are not part of today's match. They are not a surprise member of Undying Alliance, unless I'm mistaken. Sorry about that, mate. It is what it is.
Can you invite High Surveillance, please?
Yes, I can. I'll invite them right now and get all of UA in. So, with all this being said, we are starting off on Father Campbell's Chapel, and today in Sample Texas match against Milkshake Mafia, we saw both a Deathslinger and I'm trying to remember Spirit. Yeah, Spirit and Deathslinger today. If you had to guess, Joker, what Undying Alliance is going to bring to the table, what are your thoughts? Do we think another Deathslinger? Do we think, someone out of the blue? What are your thoughts there?
That's actually a good question. To be fair, I don't know all of the killers that Undying Alliance has brought already, so I don't know off the top of my head what's already like out of play for them. But if I were to guess, there's a few different routes you could go with this map. Doctor's really good on this map, especially with the perk say like distressing, just to have a wider map area coverage of his terror radius. Um, I wouldn't be surprised for a Deathslinger or a Blight. I know Blight can sometimes be pretty good on this map. I
Well,
wonder
let's
who
take a
else.
look. So, for those who are not aware, in the Discord, I did come up with a killer tracker. So, pretty simple system. If it's green, it's available to use. If it's red, not so much. Let's see. Despair. Despair has used Billy and Trickster. They have not played a lot of matches due to either forfeits or other circumstances. So, they have pretty much access to everyone with the exception of those two killers. So a lot of, different options for them, to say the least.
Gil, can I
Yeah.
request you the ping that I sent you?
Yes, let me take a look.
Thank you.
No worries. Let's see. So, based on that information, what are your thoughts, Joker?
Well, okay, with that being said, then that does leave actually quite a few different possibilities. But yeah, no, I would probably lean towards what you were saying. I feel like another Deathslinger on this map could be pretty good for them. I feel like maybe a sleeper pick that could be picked on this map is maybe a Huntress. Not a lot of people like to run Huntress on this map, but I know that there might be a few that are maybe slightly unorthodox with how they either play the killer or play certain maps, so I wouldn't be too surprised there. Um,
Yeah, I mean,
Actually,
Huntress.
Hag, I feel like could be a good one here too.
I don't know about Hag. I'm kind of looking at the way that a lot of the gen layout is, right? And quite often it is kind of spread out. You can kind of get a little bit of 3 gen here and there if you're using middle, but in order to get back up there, the reset traps again and again and again, I don't know if Hag would work out too well. I saw some really amazing play by Jess, one of Sample Texas' new additions, over on Father Campbell's Chapel of Deathslinger. I could see Huntress being played for a similar reason, though in some ways I would argue that Huntress might not be able to do the same things that I saw Jess accomplish with Deathslinger. They were very often up in middle and shooting from windows or from up above to where they were able to see over debris or tiles. And so, that's something that Huntress can't do because if she's too close to a vault or a pallet, she normally will end up hitting it instead of being able to throw over it.
No, that's fair. That's actually a fair point. Yeah, Deathslinger. Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. Deathslinger would probably be a really, really good killer for this one. I feel like, at least in my personal experience on this map, they're the only 3 gens that really I've ever noticed is usually more toward the carnival side. There's a fair couple of 3 gens that might happen elsewhere, but I think more to your point, like you were saying, yeah, for the most part, the gens are pretty well spread out.
Yeah, I mean, so with that being said, it will definitely be interesting to see what they bring. It's also possible that Despair might feel very confident on some of the, under top 8 killers, I would argue, and maybe bring someone fully unexpected like a Demogorgon or something else to that degree, right?
Yeah, I could see that. That would definitely be good possibility as well.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is with having only used, realistically speaking, 2 killers, the Trickster and, who was it that I said? Billy. Trickster and Billy.
Billy, yeah.
They definitely will have a lot of options available to them.
Well, and
good
I
to
think
go.
it also comes into play that, it depends on how they feel confident-wise coming into it. Like, do they want to burn, say, an A-tier killer or an S-tier killer, on the first map, just to give themselves a good lead? Or, do they maybe want to try their luck, basically, and just kind of maybe throw a lower-tier killer into the play and see how their survivors bring it back? I don't know. They could go a bunch of different ways, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean that is a very, very fair point to say the least. So there's a lot of ways to look at this at the end of the day, and it'll be interesting to see what they decide on. Beside that, I think the biggest thing when you're killing first, you really do want to come out swinging. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see like a nurse or a spirit just to really put the pressure on a Dying Alliance to come out of the gate.
Yeah, it's always always good as a killer to come out and set the tone. Make
Absolutely.
it easier for your squad.
Exactly. I mean, it can go one of two ways, though. If you bring in an S tier killer, like we saw with Milkshake Mafia against Sample Text, Spirit didn't get a lot of value in the early game, and so, not only was Spirit off the table, but also on top of which, it made it so that they were kind of falling behind early on. So, I mean, this first game really is just so important for these teams.
Yeah, that's always the risk you run whenever you come into matches. It's a big risk, but a big reward if it pays out for you.
No doubt about that. But with that being said, we will be loading up onto Father Campbell's Chapel in just a moment, and we'll be able to see firsthand what killer Despair decides to bring. I've seen a few people talk about Oni here and there, maybe a Legion, maybe a Blight. Very, very interested in some of those predictions. Oni, I really do love Oni. He is, in my opinion, a top 8 killer. The only thing I feel, though, that if comp players are playing well, like we saw last week, with Dead on Second Hook against, I forget whose Oni it was, but if you're just dropping pallets early and in quick succession, it makes it so difficult for the Oni to just really gain any pressure. But with that being said, let's take a look and ruin the surprise. And it is a Doctor. You were right after all, weren't you?
Doctor, let's go. Yeah, I feel like this map and like one or two other maps, Doctor is just like a go-to, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, Doctor's not a bad killer. Now, I will say we do get to see his add-ons, and I think these are very, very common. If I'm not mistaken, that is High Stimulus Electrode, and I'm not sure if that's Calm or Order, but it does make a ton of sense to me. As someone who plays killers without any add-ons whatsoever, I can say with certainty that a Doctor without a range extension on his shock therapy is honestly so punishing to play as. And, seeing High Stimulus Electrode, it makes a ton of sense to me. I think that is almost a auto-include in any competitive scenario.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. It's interesting that they went with that specific combo for the power, but we'll see if it plays out well enough for them.
Yeah, I mean, Common Order are pretty common as well. You see either the shock therapy delay reduction or the delay on the amount of charge necessary to use your Static Blast. Both very good add-ons, and really comes down to personal preference on whether or not you're going to be using your Static Blast more often or using your shock therapy. But I'm going to say here, and I'm going to say it very early, they are over-committing to this chase.
Yeah, I think that because they found the two in the basement, or the one coming out of the basement rather, I feel like they felt the need to go ahead and commit to this one because of the fact that they're so close to the basement already.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, but at the same time, you are looping in your corrupted gens. She keeps on bringing this Doctor back to Shack, back to this gen on the far side. And so your Ruin is doing literally nothing. Like, Ruin is such an amazing early game perk for the main reason that you can just push survivors off of gens, get them into tier 3, and let it do its thing. But where he's committing to one survivor, not getting any value out of Static Blast or Shock Therapy, and finally, probably more than 2 minutes later, actually guaranteed more than 2 minutes later, Doctor has finally gotten this down.
Yeah, that was kind of a risky play, as you mentioned, because it's never a good thing if you're running the killer into the corrupt zone and getting as much value of staying alive and not going down if you're the killer. So it's a bit unfortunate for them, but they finally secure it. Hopefully they can bring this back.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, right now, I think that they might try and recover here by forcing some unsafe unhooks and maybe putting Nancy into second stage. It might be a way to try and recover some pressure, and if I was Undyne Alliance right now, I would kind of just respect that fact and, you know, just work on gens. But
Yeah, it's always best to try to punish the killer like that if you're able to.
yeah, exactly. I mean, every stage is a full 60 seconds that you can spend on gens. And we did see a really good BT body block there by Nancy for high surveillance, making this chase a little bit longer. I am surprised of something. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's column or order, but if they do have the shock therapy delay reduction, one thing that you can actually do is you can shock lock the survivors on hook by just continuously using shock therapy, shock therapy, shock therapy. And if they had done that, that would force them into a scenario where 2 people are off of gens, 1 person goes on a second hook, and also would have potentially denied them of that deliverance right there. So if I was this doctor, I honestly would have shock locked if I had that ability. But it does look like Doctor is back on Nancy and really does want to just commit to this chase. I think that maybe they're thinking of just trying to get a survivor out of this match early. But Nancy just simply is not having it and does not want to go down. And Doctor, I don't know if they're panicking or falling underneath the pressure, but just not able to make their shock therapies land here.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate that they're not able to right now. Like you're saying, it could be a little bit of panic there. I think the only thing that's probably saving this at the moment for the Doctor is he still, from the looks of it, does have a nice regen going for him. So if he can kind of, he could shake it off a little bit and kind of, recompose himself, bring it back, I feel like he might be able to get the 4K here, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong here. We do see this 3-gen. The thing is, once again, Doctor suffering from the same thing that I feel like he suffered with Nancy is a little bit too much tunnel vision. Because we see him now going for Ace. Ace just going to be dropping early, trying to keep distance. And how much do you want to bet right now? If we flip the screen to one of the survivors on that gen where Doctor is facing right now, there's probably 2, if not 3 people on that gen. And Ace just trying to waste time here and ensure at least a 3-man out.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely. I will say, obviously, like I'm not a killer main necessarily, but I feel like it's killer's choice and dealer's choice, rather, if you want to say that. It's like that's how they're choosing to try to put pressure on the map and onto the survivors. Doesn't always work out in their favor, though, as we're kind of seeing here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, they played a dangerous game, and because of that, just as was predicted, they were able to confirm that last generator, get the 3-men out, and, it's a smart move on the survivor's part because that guarantees them the majority of points. In order to draw in COTF, you either need to get 6 hooks and a 2K or 8 hooks and a 1K, and Doctor fallen way short at 1K with 4 hooks, meaning that these survivors have gotten the lion's share of these points here in round 1.
Yeah, that was it was unfortunate for the Doctor there because I feel like this map in general and a couple of other selected maps, this Doctor is just a really, really good killer on this map in my opinion. So it was a bit unfortunate draw there that the survivors ended up doing a lot better against him, but we'll just have to see how it plays out the next round. See if the survivors can bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, I think the biggest thing there is just the fact that they played so laser focused on every single survivor that they injured, and because of that, it just resulted in more and more pressure as, the survivors just one after another would pop gens left and right, and maybe in their mind that 3-gen over on Shaq's side would be the difference and really change it up in the end and be able to apply that pressure. But it just never came to fruition, especially with, that Ace having Unbreakable with Deliverance. And Doctor made the right move in my opinion. When I see a broken survivor on the ground, I'm never going to risk that DS. I'm going to wait till that 60 seconds is up because the broken status effect will disappear in that time. But, you know, if you pair it with Unbreakable, then, I mean, there's no way around it when the Survivor has that type of build.
Yeah, it's pick your poison. I feel like at that point because it's you either, like you said, you either wait it out and then they have Unbreakable and you find out the hard way that way, or you pick them up, you eat the DS, and then potentially just makes the chase obviously that much longer. It means you have less map pressure, and then at that point things are kind of spiraling a bit out of control sometimes for you. Some killers you're able to bring it back a little bit, but unfortunately, the Doctor in this case was not able to.
Yeah, exactly. With that being said, I do imagine that the score has been tabulated. What was the score at the end of that round, Giraffe?
If I can get it to scroll. Despair has 17 and Undying Alliance is 38.
Undying Alliance at 30. Yep. Sounds about right. So, you know, very, very excited about that. I do want to check real quick, as I do believe I mentioned to Despair that Loaf was unable to play. Could you just check with Despair for me, Giraffe, about that? Because I believe their ad date was within 7 days. As a reminder for those about the rules when it comes to adding new players to your roster, if you do add a player to your roster, they have a 7-day cooldown. This thus avoids situations where a survivor is simply added last minute and then leaves, so on and so on. I did talk with Despair earlier to try and ensure that they're aware of that, and just want to confirm as I do see that person that we were mentioning in lobby. But overall, you know, I think Despair has an ability to bring this back, this Survivor match, but it's really going to come down to, you know, them getting a 4-man out here. And I will say, I've seen High Surveillance play, and they are very, very hyper lethal as killer. So I'm very interested to see what they bring in. I feel like they're very much like me, a jack of all trades when it comes to killer. So I'm always excited to watch some High Surveillance play.
Yeah, and I feel like it's how am I wanting to word this? I feel like it's easier to go up against killers, like say for example, if you know what a set or what person plays which killers.
Yep.
So it's like you know, like say for example, if someone loads it, it's like, oh okay, this person we know for a fact they're gonna play either Huntress or Nurse.
Yep.
Just for sake of argument. And it's like, okay, so we know for a fact that's what they run. They're not gonna run anything else. And then you could have someone else load in, and it's just like, okay, well, we don't know what they're going to run because they could quite literally throw anything at us because they're just that good with just about every killer. So I feel like that's going to probably be a boon for them because of that unpredictability.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it was much like my match as killer today. I was initially at practice with Ghostface. I didn't feel really great on Wretched Shop. And then after that, looks like the lobby is bugged for High Surveillance, so they're gonna re-invite us in. But after that, then whatchamacallit, blanking out here. After that, I kind of looked at that match and I was like, maybe not. You know, let's play someone else instead. So I opted for Pig on Wretched Shop and just kind of be able to go on the fly and go, you know, I feel like we're in a good place. I don't feel like I want to go Ghostface. Let's go with someone else, kind of secure the round, so on and so forth. You know, that's another big factor with those, you know, those killers that can play variety and just kind of throw in whoever.
True. There is also something to think about that I feel like it's not always talked about or not really always thought on, is that yes, it's also a good thing in a sense to be like, say, that expert of like 1 or 2 killers, because you could be like the master at those killers, like you know their kit, you know how to play them well, you know what perks really go well with them on like certain maps and stuff like that, whereas, you know, the other person who maybe is kind of like the jack of all trades, master of none kind of scenario, then it's like, okay, are you run also the possibility of they may not give you the best performance on one killer necessarily because they're not a master at it. Whereas someone else who is the master of, whatever killer it is, they might give you the better performance, regardless of you coming into the match knowing that that's what they're going to play.
Exactly. Exactly. And once again, I just want to confirm here, and I might need to just, re-clarify. But I talked to Heck and team earlier and did make it clear that due to Loaf's ad date being less than 7 days ago on 7/13, they were not able to play. So I do need to make that clear that they are not able to. I relayed that to Loaf. I relayed that to Kopi on Discord. So, not to jump out the commentator seat and go into organizer seat, but I did make it very clear that they were not able to participate. So I do apologize to Despair for any miscommunication or, anything like that, but unfortunately, the rules are the rules, and I am not willing to bend in this regard. For those confused, there were some instances where people were added during the break. Let me just make sure. We played matches last week, and the 13th is this week between Sunday to now, so I can't make any reasoning behind why they'd be able to. I spoke with Despair earlier. I DM'd Kopi. So, let me make that clear by copying and pasting this. And apologies for jumping out the commentator seat, but it is necessary for me to do so. Yep, I'm currently in killer right. I am a killer, that is correct. Yep, I do need to switch to spectator, but the reason why I'm in killer right now is due to the fact that we're waiting on the go-ahead from the ref. I don't want to be in spectator and guys to ready up a little bit early. If you guys were to do that, then we would end up having to restart potentially, especially in this case where there are roster issues. So, want to make that very clear. And at the end of the day, if you don't have enough survivors for the day, it is unfortunate, but that kind of, is what it is. I do hope that you do have additional people on roster available. But it was made clear that, this specific survivor was not able to play today. So I do apologize. Alright, well, we're just waiting, kind of seeing what's going on with Despair. Like I said, there must have been some miscommunication, if so. It would be a tad bit disappointing if there was no one else on Despair's team who was able to play. But to clarify a little bit further why that rule is in place, it is due to the fact that this way people can't be added last minute, people know who are joining. So a good example was in Vigo's court when some people would join last minute, and there's no real prep time, especially if they were a well-known killer with a specialty, maybe a nurse, maybe a spirit, maybe a death slinger. It kind of gives teams a fair advantage and not to spring a surprise last moment, adding someone right before the match. Also for the idea that you can't leave a team and join another team and basically play 2 times in 1 week. So this is all for the benefit of the community. Do understand that? But the rules are the rules, and they are stated pretty clearly. If anyone does have any questions or concerns about them, please feel free to DM me. We'll go into detail about the rules themselves and or to clarify why the rules the way they are, unless you have thoughts of rules being different otherwise. But currently, we're still waiting on Despair and seeing what the results is.
They said they can't make anything work. They can't play. They don't have enough.
All right. I see Hex saying, I'll see if I can make something work.
After that, they said can't.
Oh, okay, they can't? Oh, okay. Well, Unfortunately, that does mean that Despair will take the loss here. I do apologize for that. And heck, if you can hear me, we can discuss it off of Discord or off of stream. But with that being said, it does look like we'll be ending early here. Well, with that being said, congratulations to Undyne Alliance. We did see a really good Survivor showing by them in round 1. But on that note, it does look like we'll be ending the stream there. Joker, hopefully we'll get you in on the next one. We do have another match 1 week from now. Tomorrow, Sunday's Division does have a bit of a break. We had a break already in place due to July 4th, but due to the delays, obviously that kind of got pushed out. But with that being said, thank you much for, joining me today, Joker. And Joker, remind me, do you stream currently?
Yes, I do, actually.
If so, where do you currently stream? How can people find you?
Well, my stream is here on Twitch. It's God's Warrior 88. It was my old PSN, so that's just kind of the.
So hold on one second.
It.
Just getting a quick message from Undyne Alliance. They say let them play it. I'm down. All right. So if Undyne Alliance is telling me real quick that they are fine with the play, it looks like Loaf can join. High Surveillance is saying we'll play it, and at the end of the day, as long as both teams are consenting, that is fine by me. So if Giraffe, you could just let Despair know real quick that Undyne Alliance is A-okay and they want to play it out, then let's do it.
All right, I passed it on.
Thank you. Well, you hear it here, folks. At the end of the day, though I'm not necessarily a stickler for all the rules, when it comes down to my own, league, I do want to keep it pretty clear and cut. So with that being said, it looks like we do have a match on hand. So, well, Joker, what were you saying? Where can we find you after today's match?
Well, after today's match, I might stream. I'm not sure just yet, but it's going to be on twitch.tv/God's Warrior 88. That's where you can find me majority of the time. I pretty much stream just about everything.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, like I said, we do seem to have a game on hand. And once everyone's perks are confirmed, we'll get ready to on up.
All right, let's do it.
But yeah, so just that as a reminder, in order to avoid this, I do want to make it very clear that if in instance you do add a member to your roster, let's say on the 12th, and your match is on the 17th, that person cannot join for all of you competitors. So do keep that in mind. It is not on the date in which they are added to the server. It is the date that their DBD ID is added to your team's DBD ID channel. So please make sure that it is done appropriately and ahead of time to avoid these type of scenarios. Undyne Alliance was very gracious and did want the match to continue. So we'll get them on in here momentarily.
They are giving the people what they want. Chat, are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
All right. Well, with that being said, I think the only one that we're missing at this point is Loaf. And, as a new member, it'll be interesting to see what they bring to the table. And I believe now we are just waiting on confirmation for perks from Giraffe.
Perks are good.
Perks are good. Awesome. Well, in that case, I'll move into the spectator spot and give them the go-ahead. And once again, we are on the Father Campbell's Chapel with Undyne Alliance is High Surveillance as the killer. So very, very excited to see what comes of this match. And then after, Undyne Alliance will be killing again, but this time on the Wretched Shop. So very, very exciting.
Yeah, that one will definitely be interesting to see which killers we end up seeing on that map.
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, it's a pretty neutral map in my opinion. Sometimes the RNG can kind of get a bit, be a bit unfortunate for certain killers, but for the most part, most of the tiles are on the outskirts. Middle's usually dead-ish, but not too dead. So it will be interesting to see what they end up bringing. Will it be someone who's, trying to deny value via shreds? Is it someone with high mobility? I know that Milkshake Mafia decided to bring Nurse, which did rather well. Nurse is definitely pretty good on that map. Not a lot of obstacles to really worry about too much.
Yeah, I feel like, to be fair, Nurse is probably one of those killers that like you can pretty much make work just about anywhere. There's probably only a handful of maps that it's like maybe not as ideal for her, but people can usually still make it work for them.
I mean, that is true. Fact of the matter is, Nurse kind of just breaks the confines of the game and just makes it into her own plaything. So, fact of the matter is that she's pretty good on most maps. I will say without range add-ons, some of those bigger maps still are a little bit of a struggle for her. So that is something to keep in mind.
Sure.
So, we do see a lot of Nurses, of course, now running the double charge add-ons instead.
Which, to be fair, that's a pretty lethal combo because you can just, you get your charges back instantly, basically, and you can just blink all over the map. You could put as much map pressure as you want.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No doubt about that. And one of the nice things about it, too, is the fact that, it forces survivors to play a little bit differently. When you're playing against a ranged Nurse, you want to have that Nurse charge up her ability as much as possible. But I'm seeing a lot of Nurses in COTF because of that. Not having range add-ons, instead doing very short mid to short blinks, that way to avoid survivors doubling back and forcing survivors to almost hold W for the most part instead.
Yeah, I feel like it just depends on the survivor because it's like usually those two basically methods of looping her are usually the best. It's either hold W and just keep going and going and going and going, or you try to mind game the double back, see if it works for you.
Yeah, exactly.
But you usually can't really get away with that too often. Usually you'll get a few of those that'll go your way. It doesn't always work out that way though.
Yeah, exactly. And we did get a disconnect there. Those of you wondering why we aren't back in the match already, but unfortunately High Surveillance did not choose the map and it ended up on Hawkins. Don't think you guys want to play there. That's a bit of a difficult indoor map to play around. This will, of course, count as a DC for Undying Alliance. Of course, survivors and killers alike can change builds, swap them around, what have you. So feel free to do that now if necessary. If you do, of course, please do resend the builds over to Giraffe. But looks like survivors and killers alike don't care and jumping right back in. This time, for real though, on Father Campbell's Chapel.
I'm just happy we're not playing on Backwater Swamp, and for those that know and play with me a lot, I hate that map with a passion.
You know what, Joker? You'll be excited to hear that Backwater Swamp is going to be the final map. No, I'm just joking.
Oh my god. You can't do that to me, man.
Oh.
Don't play with me like that.
I do have to think about, though, for the finals between the two top teams of each division, what those maps will be, So I do have to think about that, and maybe I'll leave it up to the community a little bit, or between the two teams, maybe they can ban specific maps, and we'll just, do a random roll. That might be an idea, but I'll talk with that a little bit further in towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I feel like that definitely would be. I like the idea of a veto process of like certain maps and stuff like that because I don't know, maybe it's because I'm used to it in other esports gaming competitions and stuff like that with like Call of Duty and Overwatch and stuff like that. They have like map vetoes and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe biased because I'm used to it, but I don't know. I like the idea.
Yeah, no, I mean I was used to it a lot on Rainbow Six Siege, obviously. And I could definitely see that being a thing here. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people do appreciate having prior knowledge of the maps, weeks and weeks in advance so they can practice. I think for the finals, of course, we'll keep it a little bit more random, but also might throw in some form of strategy by vetoing specific maps based on what killers your team is strong with or even weak with. You might want to ban Wrecker's Yard or Wretched Shop because you don't want, your best killer going on that map, for example. So I'll have to think about that a little bit more in detail. But we are now in the match, and let's see. We see high surveillance on the twins. We do see
Ooh.
the Forest Stew as well as what is that there? That's the green cloth. Is that double speed add-ons? Is that it?
I believe so.
Yeah, I know Psycho definitely be able to speak on it in more
Yeah, I
depth.
was
Psycho
gonna
not being a
say.
twins main, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, my boy Psycho would know for sure.
But with that being said, we do see that first pounce there. I am surprised. You normally do see a lot of twins focus in on the initial M1 first before bringing out Victor. But it looks like High Surveillance just wanted to go for that early down. And just like that, within the first basically 60 seconds, we do see Nia down on the ground and Undying along with that.
Ooh, an Undying play. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like with twins, it's really hard, at least in my opinion, to play her poorly, for lack of a better term, because she's just able to put so much map pressure with Victor, and then on top of that, it's the fact that he, unless the killer straight out misses, it's very difficult to make Victor miss without using something like a pallet or something like that. You usually don't want to use those against Victor. You want to try to save those for Charlotte if you can.
Yeah,
so it's one of those things where it's just like she's just a strong killer.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, all things considered. I think one of the biggest things here is, you know, how the survivors decide to play against twins. You know, in my opinion, if you see twins, especially in comp, the main thing that you want to do is you want to double up. That way, you know, if Victor pounces on you, you can crush Victor immediately, and then have your partner heal you. And so it's always two people on one gen, and that way Victor gets as little value as possible. And the funny thing is, you know, you're saying about you don't want to drop pallets on Victor. Honestly, in my opinion, if you have the chance to do so, do so. Because it will crush Victor, and it will make distance. Charlotte is then in a situation to where she has pallets to break in the future, to where you still have the ability to vault those and create distance. So I don't know, I would argue that dropping pallets on Victor might be the play in many cases.
You know, that's actually fair. That's not a bad point. I definitely agree with you in that sense as well. I feel like it's just not necessarily a 50-50 or like more dependent on the survivor, but I feel like it's also maybe a game plan thing, because it's like you obviously don't want to waste, or maybe it would feel like a waste to use the pallets on Victor and say like it doesn't work necessarily, whereas you have like the better chance of it working on Charlotte.
Well, think of
for example.
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way, though. A lot of times in comp, you will see survivors simply drop pallets early. Doesn't matter the scenario, they will drop pallets early to avoid the hit, whether that's due to connection or just due to them getting mind-gamed out of the pallet. I will say, High Surveillance here really just has eyes for Nia and trying to get Nia out of this match early. But, you know, with all that being said, you know, if a pallet is down and the killer's not there to break it, then is it really a waste?
That's actually another really good point. Yeah, that's again, I feel like that really just comes down to the survivor running. It's like, do they want to take that chance, or do they want to play it, you know, safer, and just throw the pallet down for, you know, for the sake of, you know, gaining that space.
Yeah, no, makes sense to me. And now the decision comes down to, will this Nia have Decisive Strike? And will the twins just kind of wait it out? That's another option here. And I'll be honest, High Surveillance here applying a lot of good pressure and really putting, you know, Despair into a very uncomfortable position where there's potential that they'll have one survivor out of the game with 4 gens left.
Yeah, that's never a good scenario to be in if you're a survivor, because that just puts that much more pressure onto your survivor squad to get things done. Because then at that point you have lower map pressure, you have lower gen pressure if you're a survivor, and that's usually a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we do see very quickly Knucklehead going down as well. You know, honestly, though, I imagine they're trying to play middle there with Victor on their back and kind of try and take them hostage. Honestly, if I was them, I would have rotated out towards Shaq and, you know, found a teammate to double up with and get that heal in. But unfortunately, they are back into Carnival, where I think High Surveillance is kind of looking at this and going, okay, I'm going to give you one side of the map, and I'll just take the other, because they really haven't left Carnival all too often.
Yeah, that's always, it's always an interesting idea as well, because that could be the game plan. It's like, hey, you know, we just want to keep the kill on this side of the map, force them to commit. If they commit, great. That means we have the better map and gen pressure on the other side of the map. Obviously, it's also killer dependent at that point, because it's like, you know, do they choose to commit to that, or do they recognize it, or do they just like, you know, hey, we're just gonna kind of tease you a little bit, we're gonna play your game just for a little bit, and then, you know, just back off last second.
Yeah, I mean, the main concern for a lot of killers in that type of scenario, of course, is the idea that if you have to commit to a chase and they bring you into the area where all those gens are done, you then have to, you know, disengage or risk losing a lot of gen pressure. But High Surveillance here just very strategically putting Charlotte into a position to where they can, for all intent and purpose, guard their hooks and bring survivors into their zone, for lack of a better term, where they're kind of just zoning out these survivors and putting them into really uncomfortable positions. And man, with that Victor already set up and ready to pounce, that looks to be the end of this match. Really, it'll come down to whether or not they can actually get this survivor that they dropped down to Nancy onto a hook, or if it might be a little bit too late.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they play that. Like I said, Twins are just so strong with Victor, especially if you do double speed add-on for Victor. He could just run around the map like a crackhead, almost like the Light, if you want to make that comparison. But she almost like she's able to, like, seemingly almost at will just corral people exactly where she wants them.
Yeah, I mean, she is definitely at the top of A tier for me when I'm looking at, you know, killers and the overall tier list, because she is one of the few macro players where she's just able to, you know, apply so much map pressure from afar with Victor. And when you're using Force Stew and the Scarf, you know, your speed moves up from 150. I think it's a 175. It could be a little bit lower than that. It's getting towards Blight levels, but not just there. I think Blight runs at like 270 some odd speed. It's kind of ridiculous.
It feels like it, though. It feels like it.
I can see that. But that there will be a 4K for High Surveillance. Comes down to see if Loaf has the ability to Deliverance right away, but is not looking like it. Looks like High Surveillance having a conversation with Victor there, giving him some pats because he is a good boy. So, very nicely done by High Surveillance and Undying Alliance. I mean, a really good example of how to play the Twins. So, GG, well played to Undying Alliance and Despair. But, I mean, Despair's still in the game. You know, they're definitely down when it comes to points right now. But they have these last 2 rounds to try and bring it back. So, if they can manage that on Wretched Shop, they can hopefully leave it up to their killer thereafter.
Yeah, and this kind of brings up the point that we touched, I believe we both touched on earlier in the first map, or just before the first map, excuse me. Now with the point differential being, you know, as high as it is, it's, do you waste basically 2 really, really good killers to try to bring it back? Or do you kind of more or less accept how far down you are and try to make lower tier killers like just kind of waste the lower tier killers so you have more of those top tier killers to use later on?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was a conversation that I had with myself today, where I think it was like a 30, 40, maybe even a 50-point lead in Sample Tex's favor, and I went, do I want to bring out like a Legion? Do I want to bring out a Ghostface? Do I want to bring out a Demogorgon? Or do I want to, you know, play it safe and kind of in the middle? And that's where I brought Pig, you know. And so, you know, that was kind of the decision making in my head of, you know, do I want to really just put the nail in the coffin, or do I fear using resources that I could use elsewhere?
Yeah, I feel like now that's just it's just up to the teams at that point. It's like, do they feel confident enough to be able to bring this back? Because if the answer to that question is yes, then obviously their probably best bet is to bring their best killers forward to
Yep.
try to secure the win.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that was kind of, I will say that does put High Surveillance into a very interesting position, much like myself, where I was kind of going back and forth, like, who do I want to play? Who do I want to play? You know, what feels best in this scenario? Imagine High Surveillance kind of in the same position of, okay, you know, let's take a step back. Let's look at the point difference. You know, where are we at right now? But just want to confirm, Giraffe, real quick, are we good on Survivor and Killer builds, or are we still waiting on a few updates?
Still checking them.
All right, thank you. I do appreciate the update. And so we'll get a score update in just one moment, but just want to make sure that we get this match started up for you guys as soon as possible. But I think this is the match, you know. This is the match where it is the make it or break it moment for Despair. And, you know, the question of the day is, will this be their swan song?
Yeah, and for I believe it's Despair is in the lead, correct right now?
Nope, Undying Alliance is in the lead.
It's Undying Alliance. Sorry, I'm mixing up my teams because I'm thinking points in my head and I'm just like confusing myself. So for
Oh,
Undying
good.
Alliance here, it's you're kind of also in this in the boat of, okay, we have a little bit of wiggle room.
Yep.
We can afford to make, if any, a few mistakes whenever we're playing, you know, Survivor or Killer. So in their head also, it's like you were saying, do you choose to put the nail in the coffin, bring out a really strong killer, end it now basically, or do you just be like, hey, we could probably use a really strong killer elsewhere, I'm not going to waste it on this, I feel
Yep.
confident in my team to bring this through, and they bring in, you know, just a lower tier killer, doesn't matter who it is, and they just do the best that they can with it and just try to secure as much points as possible to make it that much harder.
No, absolutely. I will also say that for Undying Alliance, they're definitely in a position where they can kind of take it a bit easy, relax a little bit on this last killer match. But Jeff, I feel like you have an update for us.
Yes, we are all set.
All set. And what was the score off that last match?
Despair has 26 and Undying Alliance has 88.
Thank you.
No
It's a tough
problem.
mountain to climb.
It is, but it's not impossible. If they were able to get a 4-man out and do it for all intent and purpose flawlessly, I think that it is possible for Despair to come back. And I have seen them play, and they can play well. At the same time, you know, as we have seen many times over, High Surveillance, they are just a really lethal killer, and I do have high respect for them for being another variety killer like me, where they can kind of just have their bag of tricks and go, what am I going to reach in and grab now? Is it going to be a Bubba? Is it going to be a Hag? Is it going to be a Twins? What have you? Kind of just play whatever in that moment.
Just like, hey, let's spin the wheel, see which one it lands on, and you know what? That's the one we're going for.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I know the wheel well. The wheel of killer. Tis a fun time.
I was going to say Wheel of Fortune, or in this case, Wheel of Misfortune for the other team.
No doubt about that, but we are going to be loading up on the Wretched Shop. So let's see, you know, like I said, it's a medium-sized map, not too large, not too small, pretty, you know, not symmetrical, but it's very much just a square of a map, so you don't really have too much distance to make up in many different scenarios. So, I don't know, you know, whether it's going to be a mobility killer, whether it's going to be, you know, a value killer for anti-loop. It's going to be hard to predict, I think, though I wouldn't be surprised to see, like, a Bubba, maybe.
I was gonna say it's tough to call, obviously, with because we don't know obviously what each team is going to bring in for the killer. But in my opinion, for smaller maps, I feel like it's a lot easier for killers, like you said, like Bubba. You could even throw in like you could throw in a Wraith, you could throw in a Myers probably on this map is not, I would imagine, not too terrible for him.
I will say we have not seen a Myers yet in COTF. I'll be very interested for that day.
Yeah, that's fair. That's gonna be very interesting if teams ever choose to play him or not. But no, it's just something to kind of think on, because it's like smaller maps, maybe some of these like lower tier killers, unless you're wanting to use like one of, say like a blight, for example, like if you really just want to make things like high octane crazy chaos and close quarters kind of thing. So
yeah, but in this case, we
gonna
do
be
see a Demogorgon instead, and making some quick value. I mean, this is one of those killers I was talking about where, since these loops are kind of all over the place, where you're kind of getting from tile to tile and trying to really work that outside and just hope the RNG in the middle's good. A shred-based kill like Demogorgon, Bubba, Billy really does make a lot of sense to me. So, very happy to see Demogorgon here. I think it's a safe tick. I think that, in the right hands, he can be quite lethal and just is a huge resource hog when he wants to be. As we're seeing here, one pallet after another going down. But I will say, this is almost giving me flashbacks to the first match that we saw with Doctor and chasing survivors in corrupted gens. Maybe High Surveillance is just feeling very confident. He feels they have a good lead, and so he's not really too worried about this. But I do fear that by the time this corrupt intervention ends, we're going to see 2, if not 3 gens pop off.
Yeah, like we said earlier, it's always the risk you run. It's, do you risk chasing someone in your corrupt zone and wasting as much time as possible? Sometimes, obviously, you're able to, as a killer, make that work, and you're able to get really good early value by being able to down a survivor instantly within that corrupt area, and then by that time it's pretty much snowballing because corrupt is still up. You still have your other perks in play that are I imagine that combo well with what you're trying to get accomplished here, and so it's tough, but I feel like the quicker that they can make the decision on dropping chases in their corrupt zone, despite them, wanting to tunnel vision in this case and cement that one person on the hook kind of thing, I feel like it'll be better for them.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good example of what we're talking about, though. Corrupt Intervention was going on, 2 gens popped off, that third one not too long after, and now High Surveillance is actually, I think, maybe panicking a little bit here, because he's now, okay, 3 gens are already done, I've only gotten 1 hook, they just need 2 more gens, and if they get a 4-man out, I mean, the match is not necessarily going to be tied, but the bridge is going to be gapped to allow Despair's killer to really come in and potentially take this win away from Undying Alliance.
Yeah, it's a you hate to see it moment, because again, we've been harping on it just about the entirety of this match, and it's just like, you can't really afford as killer, even if you've got a decent enough lead, you really cannot afford to allow 3 gens done and you only have 1 hook.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear me all the time talk about in my own stream the ratio. That is a 1-for-1 ratio and a 2-to-1 ratio. When I say, ratio, I'm talking about hooks to gens. And personally for me, a 2-to-1 ratio will always be ideal to where I, am able to get 2 hooks for every 1 generator. Because by the end of the match, if I have that in play, then I feel pretty comfortable even if they get the last gen done.
Yeah, it's I feel like that's actually a good way to go about it as well. It's going to be interesting to see if this Demogorgon can bring it back, because they, like you said, they might be panicking just a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, and for good reason. We see 4 gens pop now, and not a great gen split, I will say. We see, this little cluster of gens over here. So that's where survivors may potentially have made a mistake. They're not, too far away, but they're not too close either. So if they don't play it smart, then this still might give Demogorgon a way to win. But Demogorgon just needs to make sure that they're not committing to any unnecessary chase, especially when they do see that aura read off of Undying.
True.
And with that being said, we see that gen over here probably being their main focus, and the other gen, we have seen that portal be cleansed. I will say it is very surprising to ever see a Demogorgon without Save the Best for Last. I feel like it's just such a staple on him that it's always just shocking not to see a Demogorgon without it.
Yeah, it's even from coming from me as a survivor, it's like you almost always see a Demodog with, you know, with Save the Best for Last. It's almost like comboing, for lack of a better way to explain it. It's like just comboing Monitor on a Doctor, or even, you know, a Deathslayer.
Really,
Like,
Monitor
it's
on
just such a
Doctor?
faithful. I've seen it. I've seen a lot of people run it. Some people, I think
That's
it might be
so
personal
strange.
preference, but I've seen Doctor with that, or the other staple is obviously Distressing, just to add to that massive range that he already has with the Static Blast.
Yeah, but you can only do that in Chase, is my thought process there. Like, maybe Distressing or
True.
Agitation, sure, to increase your terror radius, but to have Doctor's Static Blast be shortened is kind of odd to me, at the very least.
Yeah, I think it's possible that the reason that I see it used so much is because I feel a lot of killers will also run like Tinkerer.
Yeah, that's
with it
fair,
as well.
that's fair.
So I feel like that might be their reasoning behind using it, or by comboing that specifically with the Doctor. But that's where I agree with you. It's a little bit weird, but it's something that I personally have seen a lot. So it's just I've come used to seeing that on that killer at that point.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, for me, Modular Abuse is almost, you know, a staple always for Deathslinger, though it could be argued that Deathslinger also, much like Demo, wants Save the Best for Last very often, because much like Demo, the real beauty of Save the Best for Last is just being able to get that M1 into an M2 shred or a shot off from Deathslinger almost immediately. And it is terrifying when that happens, but Despair looking like a completely different team from last match. You know, cranking out these gens wicked fast, making sure that these chases are long, and making a few mistakes here and there still, but honestly, I think they can probably end up with a 3-man out here if they play this right.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kudos to them to be able to bring this. Well, I say bring this back, but you know they're still down in the match, but they're still, from the looks of it at least, like you said, potentially able to get a 3 or 4 man out here. Gonna bode well for them, and yeah, it just seems like the Demo here is just unfortunately not really able to get much going. And
Yeah,
I feel like it all comes back from what we talked about earlier.
Yep.
Because they chose to commit and tunnel, or tunnel vision rather, excuse me, the person in their corrupt zone. It comes back to bite them.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And I'm not sure if Demo here is going to kind of be in a scenario to where they're like, okay, I want to protect this one kill, because it will result in 2 hook stages and a death. I mean, it will limit the amount of points that Despair can get. And I think that might be the right play, because competitive is not just about ensuring that you get the most points. It's also about ensuring that your opponents get the least amount of points that is possible as well.
Yeah, and also at the end of the day, you got to consider, you got to take as many points as you can get. Like, you can't really necessarily, like, beggars can't be choosers, you know?
Exactly,
You gotta
especially
take
in
what
this
you can
scenario.
get.
But we do see the Survivor team coming in and trying to get this unhook. I imagine that those of BT are going to try and get that unhook first. And we do see them rip down, but they need body blocks quick, and looks like that's exactly what's happening here. And Demo, I think, sees exactly the line he needs, and it does not matter. Despair making a beautiful play there and getting the 4-man out. Nicely done.
Risky play, but again, big risk, big reward. They got the unhook. They didn't give any extra points to the killer. They didn't give them any extra hooks or anything like that, and they managed to escape.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
this is
kudos.
what they needed. This is what they needed to bring the game back and to leave it up to their killer in the end. And where it seemed like this was going to be Despair's swan song based on the performance that I've seen from High Surveillance, it turned around and, you know, really, I guess it is not over until the fat lady sings.
Yeah, that's one way to put it, but it's a very accurate way to put it.
But with that being said, Giraffe, out of curiosity, with that amazing showing from Despair that last match, what is the current score?
Despair has 76 and Undying Alliance has 100.
So it's still
30
within
points.
reach on both sides. I mean, Undyne still has that lead, but it is significantly smaller in comparison to what it once was. So we will see if, Undying Alliance is going to break underneath that pressure where Despair is now within striking distance, or whether or not Despair is going to feel that much more motivated to bring out the big guns.
Yeah, and if memory serves me right, after map 2, they were up like 60.
Yep.
Around the 60-point margin. Now they're only up 30, as we just got confirmation. So it's gonna be, again, it's a tall mountain to climb, but it's doable. They've managed to bring it back, and they have the opportunity now to take the win from underneath their opponent's feet.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and this would be a huge win as well. I mean, Undying Alliance has shown again and again and again, how they play as a competitive team, and they are definitely a force to reckon with. But, Despair just, I guess, I don't know what they did, whether it was a pep talk in the locker room, in the Discord channel, or what, but, like, they came back from that last match, which was a pretty one-sided game, to where they are now, to where they pulled a 180. It very much reminds me of Dead on Second Hook from last week.
True, and forgive me for being slightly biased here, but it also reminds me of the Four Dwights game that we had, I believe, a couple weeks back, where we were down big and we managed to bring it back and win by 1 point.
No, absolutely, no doubt about that. And I do want to check in real quick with Giraffe. What is the killer going to be, or who rather is the killer going to be for this last match?
I don't know yet.
Alright, so I imagine maybe Despair is talking over, maybe trying to pick and choose who's going to be the last killer. Maybe they have some nurse mains up their sleeve, a spirit main. Because I get a feeling that if the score is this close at this point in time, you might want to bring out the heavy guns, right?
Yeah, you kind of have to run that risk at this point. You have to be like, okay, this game's winnable. We got to bring it out. Whatever we can to secure us a win, get us as many points as possible, that's what we need to bring out.
No, exactly, and like I mentioned at the very beginning, Despair has not brought a lot of killers in, so they do have all those S-tier killers. We have the Blights, we have the Spirits, we have the Nurses, all at their disposal. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and I'd be more surprised not to see a Nurse, or a Spirit, or a Blight, than I would be to, see a Nurse at this point in time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's obviously tough because we don't know what exactly their thought process is for who or what exact killer they're going to bring out, but I would have to agree with you. At least in my mind, I personally would say this would be probably a good Spirit map.
Yeah, Spirit wouldn't be bad on this, of course. Both Spirit and Nurse, being the SD killers that they are, they do have limited add-ons available to them. That is something to keep in mind, so that it's not like they're going to be cracked out with double range or with some of the best add-ons that Spirit can handle. But even still, they're very strong killers because they do break the mechanics of the game and really just kind of flip it on its head. So, that might be what they need, and if they do have that killer available to them and someone who specializes in that killer, that is definitely going to be a determining factor here.
Yeah, I would say Wraith also might not be a terrible pick for this map. Some could argue, even though yes, he's a lower tier killer, Billy, just because he's able to get from one side of the map to the other, and incredible speeds as well as the Blight and stuff like that. So it's kind of, they still have like a lot of killers obviously at their disposal who they want to choose or to bring onto here, but it's high mobility, I would imagine, is probably the...
Yeah, I mean, realistically speaking, I wouldn't be surprised about that at all. Wraith, I would say, maybe not. I love Wraith to death, and I think his buff was significant. I feel like Wraith is very much better served on corn maps or maps where there's a lot of uses for like the all-seeing perks. Otherwise, my go-to, of course, is going to be the double Swift Hunt just for that uncloak speed. But I feel like if I am Despair here, I don't know, I don't feel like a Wraith is my go-to choice. I really do want to put the pressure on the survivors and, bring out someone that's going to either slow down the game, like a pig, or someone that's going to, make it as short as possible, like a Nurse, like a Spirit, like a Blight. But
You could also, I think, argue that. Okay, hear me out. This might be crazy, but you could maybe also, if you want to really slow down the game, a Legion with Thanatophobia.
I mean, that is a possibility. I mean, I do love me some Legion, don't get me wrong. Unfortunately, like, when I was building up my own tier list of killers and kind of looking at it all, you know, I was not surprised to see that I put Legion down very far, because his main issue is his anti-loop. His anti-loop is great until he needs to down someone. The moment that he needs to down someone, it kind of just falls apart, because then you become a 115 killer with no real anti-loop. You're great at the moment where you vaulted that pallet or vaulted that window and hits a survivor, but then after, you're just a 115 killer, and these survivors are going to drop pallets early. And, you know, unless you have, like, Eerie Button at your disposal, which, you know, all Eries are not allowed in COTF, Legion is going to kind of fall apart at the pallet.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think the main reason that I would even consider running that on this map would be just, again, the fact that you're able to slow down the game with Thanatophobia, and say if you combo that with, if you really, really wanted to, you could combo that with Sloppy Butcher, and just, like, make it to where they have to respect the fact that they need to reset, which then gives you the opportunity, at least in my mind as a killer, you're able to put more pressure on the map or on a certain survivor, say if you're in chase.
Yeah,
Because say if you have multiple people injured, they're too busy focused on trying to reset because of that, so that they're not, you know, putting themselves at the disadvantage with that decrease in speed and doing stuff, and then it's just you have a little bit of wiggle room in that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, all things considered, but I do want to check out Giraffe real quick and see if the builds are good to go on both sides.
We're good to go.
Awesome, awesome. In that case, I will give these players the go-ahead, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Despair is bringing and what Loaf is bringing specifically. As we did find out, they are a newer member of Despair, so it will definitely be fascinating to see, you know, what they are brought in for. As we saw them on Survivor side, and this time we'll be seeing them on Killer. So very, very exciting indeed. Outside of that, you know, I really want to like Legion more. Legion's one of my favorite killers to play. I don't know. I just feel like it's not something that you want to risk it all on in the end. At least not in this scenario.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I feel like that definitely would be just something like it's super high risk
Yes.
to run that. It would be interesting if they did, though. It's always, you know, because it's obviously everything's always a possibility whether someone wants to pull it out or not, because they feel confident in it, they've practiced it on this map, maybe necessarily, or, you know, whatever the case may be. But I don't know. I feel, though, with all of that being said, I still think, based on what we were talking about earlier, I feel like it's kind of hard at this point not to bring a spirit or a nurse at this point.
Yep. That makes sense to me.
Hard to argue against it.
Gil, can you check the ping in Undying Alliance, please?
Yep, I see the ping. Realistically speaking, in this scenario, I'll have to address that after the stream. I feel like that is something that needs to be talked about more in detail. If that was brought up earlier, then maybe we could have a different conversation. But I think in this instance, well, I'll just have to play it out as is. But with that being said, we do see Nurse, which is, like I said, not surprising in the slightest. What I am also not surprised about is seeing a Haunted Ground. I mean, Haunted Ground being very strong on Nurse, and where, you know, as a survivor, you need to be very careful. I do think that they did pop it at the right point in time, of course, given that someone was injured.
Yeah, so now it's up to, you know, it's up to the survivors on how they choose to play it. You know, are they able to stay safe long enough to where the nurse just doesn't get hardly any value on it?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, the biggest thing is that the way I always see about popping, you know, totems in the instance where, you know, Haunted Ground is a possibility, you always want to do so when the killer's already hit the survivor. That way, if they commit to the injured chase, then they're going to lose out on haunted ground value. Whereas if they don't, like we saw here, they could still potentially get value, but it's not a guarantee in comparison.
True, and the other thing to also consider is, again, like you said, the timing of when they did it. Because not only is the timing obviously good, because they already, as you mentioned, they popped it whenever someone was injured, but it's also the fact that, hey, it's at the very beginning of the match, basically. You know, we don't have to worry about this later. Because if they had popped it later, let's say, and you say, for example, you had already 1 or 2 people hurt, or you had 1 person on hook or something like that, that could have potentially snowballed even more for the killer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I will say, really, really good play by Loaf here. They were smart in understanding, hey, I need to get this person onto second stage to really apply some pressure. And in doing that, they just kind of forced the Meg into a scenario to where she needs to go for the grab to try and save for the second stage. Honestly, if I was them, I would have just left at that point, recognizing what the nurse was going to do in the long run. And Nurse here really looking to clean up. And we do see 4 people down. The real question is, do one of these survivors have Unbreakable? And if so, it is high surveillance once again. So I think they can still try and bring this back. But it's definitely going to be rough. But I want to note something here. How is Lollygag so long on that hook? I am curious here, and I want to confirm my suspicion. It does seem to be the case where camaraderie was in play. But will that make a difference here at the, at the tail end of this match? These survivors really do need to regroup in some way, shape, or form and try and, reclaim control of this match, but this nurse is just not letting them apply any pressure whatsoever.
Yeah, camaraderie is always an interesting perk, because it obviously, it gives you that extra 30-second buffer of like, hey, you just proc it, try and get yourself reset, try to do, whatever the call is to be like, hey, put map pressure, gen pressure, force the killer to wait out those extra 30 seconds as well, because some killers, you'd be like, hey, I don't want to wait it out, I'll just, I'll leave, I'll put my own pressure on the map, I'll just, do my thing. And then other killers will be like, yeah, you know what, no, you want an extra 30 seconds on the hook, that's fine, I'll stay by.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much where we're at, and, I think that, realistically speaking, the nurse played just really, really smart, really, really efficiently, understand that they needed that early second stage, and it comes down to that decision-making with the survivors, do we just, with them knowing that they're going to be camping, do we try and get them out of second stage, or do we, commit to the gens instead? And I think here, the commitment to try and keep Lollygag at a second stage is really what allowed them to snowball instead. So, very nicely done by the nurse, and it just shows how lethal she can be in the right hands, making the right choices, all things considered.
Yeah, and it's not something you see every day that, you have basically a 4K with like 5 gens left or 4 gens left. It's usually, you're usually at the 4K point, it's usually, you got like 1 or 2 gens left, because at that point you've already put, the survivors have already put a lot of pressure on you by completing those gens and stuff like that. But at this point, nah, that's just really, really well played by the nurse here.
Yeah, especially with Undying Alliance have that lead there. Honestly, if I had known that Nurse was just sitting on the generator, or sitting on the hook rather, I would just sit on generators, get points, and make that moment clear of, okay, we just need to widen the gap, ensure that they can't get 56 points or whatever to bridge that gap there. With that being said, that there will be the end of this match and is a full-on 4K. There are some unique scenarios here, and I'll have some discussions with the teams after the match, but that will be the end of that match. With that being said, I know we already did our outro earlier, but Joker, if they did want to see you when you go live next, where would they find you?
Yeah, so once again, if you guys weren't here earlier, you can find me on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/GodsWarrior88. I stream there usually just about every day or every other day. I try to do a variety stream as well, so always down for some good times there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Giraffe, just want to confirm what the resulting score was that, based on the fact that they're within that 50-point difference, and we did see a 4K of 0 gens. I do imagine Despair did come out on top.
Despair has 125 and Undying Alliance has 100.
Thank you, thank you. I do appreciate it. And with that being said, with that confirmation, I am Mark, aka Guildspire. You can find me over on twitch.tv/Guildspire. That's GILTSPIRE. And do appreciate you all being here today, and we'll be back again in 1 week's time for the Saturday Division. As I did say earlier, Sunday does have a day off, so we'll see y'all then. On that note, guys, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye!